Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hardcore. I think this is actually the 31st episode. Yes, last week was the 30th. So we've already done 31 episodes. Hi, Celestina. How are you doing today?
I'm baffled by that. It doesn't feel like we've been doing this that long. Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm also following a true crime couple that they just started their own channel. Like there was one of them that did her own channel and now they're doing one together and they're on the 29th episode. So I'm like, okay, let's see how this is continuing with both of
Dude,
us if we're going to
that's
keep up.
awesome. That's awesome.
So today we're going to be talking about Anne Hathaway and specifically her Uranus opposition. So I'm going to give a short little intro and then Celestina is going to take over because she knows far more about her life, her private life, her work life, and her chart than I do. I only skimmed over it this time because she's got notes, lots
I
of
do have
notes.
notes. I do have notes.
Notes on the nodes. So today the Uranus opposition is really known as the midlife crisis. It's the halfway point in life a lot of times, at least that's what it's looked at these days. 200 years ago it was not the case, or 300 years ago people wouldn't live that long. But these days, for most of us, this is the halfway point. The important thing to note here is that the Uranus opposition is usually something that you read to non-6 line profiles. So her profile is a 2-4, perfect person to do a Uranus opposition for. And for the 6 line profiles, so if you have a 6-3 or 2-6 or something like that, you would benefit more from the Saturn return, which happens at around 30, which we did for Miley Cyrus last week. And if you want to check that out, it's quite interesting to take a look at how we analyze someone's chart, and you may be able to get some insights for your own chart as well. Then the next life cycle that you would analyze as a 6 line profile would be your Chiron return. So Ra usually never did a Uranus opposition reading for a 6 line. He either did a Saturn return or a Chiron return, depending on which one the person was closer to. So Uranus opposition is also the moment where you start to breathe out life. This is what it's described as. It's basically up to around the age of 40 when the Uranus opposition starts to take place. You breathe in life. This is the moment where you grow and evolve. And after that, you start to breathe out life. At least this is what it's known for. Prana in until around 40, prana out until after around 40. Every one of us has a certain specific date when we have our Uranus opposition. You will see that with Anne Hathaway, she will be having hers at around 43 or at 43. And another thing to note is that the nodes shift at that point in time. The importance of the nodes, which ones to look at, which ones, what your environment, your stage will look like after 40, that also shifts. So before, around the age of 40, it is more focused on wow, now I'm getting confused. I'm always getting confused with these nodes. It's the south node before the age of 40, and then it turns into the north node.
I have notes. Yes. South to
notes.
north.
Yes. I always try to remember it by looking at them because the south node kind of goes down and the north node kind of points towards the future. That's how I kind of remember it.
Love it.
So yeah, and that being said, I would hand over the mic to you.
Okay, guys. Hang on for this wild ride. I'm excited. I feel like this is the deepest that I've ever gone down someone else's chart rabbit hole. So I'm nervous and excited all at the same time.
Me too.
Okay, so as Miko kind of said, she very eloquently said, not kind of said, eloquently said, this Uranus opposition piece is time of upheaval, transformation. It can be a part where things are coming at you to challenge you. Maybe it's a time to lean into that. Maybe it's a time to break away from that, embrace different paths, or look towards the familiar, right? Like you can go in either way for Uranus opposition, but it's definitely a time when things will be changing in one's life. And again, just to kind of be aware of it and determine whether those decisions that you're currently making are for you or not for you. So that's kind of where we're at. We're going to start with the sun gates, both in personality and design. So Anne Hathaway is a 2-4 profile. We're going to dive more into that as we progress because it comes up a lot in her chart. But her personality sun is the 43.2. So again, 2-line, right? This is located in the ajna. I think this is really, really interesting. So both her personality sun and her design sun, I believe, are in the ajna, which is wild. I would love to have a conversation with her in person. We're going to get to that momentarily. So her personality sun is the 43.2. It's the gate of insight. So being able to gain insights into the world from like a really unique point of view and kind of have this like fresh spin on things. But then she also has this really unique ability because it's in her personality to be able to vocalize this. And if I recall, this is the I know statement in the throat, or yeah, this is connected to the I know piece in the throat, right? So 4323, meaning that she's able to vocalize what she's thinking and her thought processes. Yeah. So in order for people with this gate to be recognized by others, they need to understand exactly what they're trying to say, right? Like they have to have that thought fully formulated before they can go into it. And if you've ever seen Anne Hathaway speak, and not just like stump speak, but like speak in interviews or speak when recognizing an award, I actually am going to link a really good speech that she had for the LGBTQAI plus community. I think it was like some type of equality speech that she presented. You can tell that every word that she says is so well thought out, and it's not just about what she's saying, but also the way she presents herself, that not that it's rehearsed, but that it's just so well thought out to the T. And I think it comes across so intensely in a really cool way, right? Like, I don't think everyone has that ability to be able to hold themselves in that regard all the time. And it's really cool to be able to see that skill set come out in her so apparently. Yeah. So one other piece of this gate is allowing yourself, when you have this gate, allowing yourself to really think through things rather than taking insight from others. Yes, others may be giving you insights, but you really have to process it through on your own before you can make a change to something or be able to make it relatable into your world and then vocalize on it, right? So even if you're getting other insights from other places, it really is about like the formulation of your own insights, of your own opinions, and then in her case being able to vocalize that because it is directly connected to the throat. Yeah. So it's really cool to be able to see her speak in that manner. Any thoughts on this before I continue? Have you seen her speak?
Just a very, very few times. It's more connected to her acting, I think.
Yeah.
The things that I know of her, I don't really know many speeches of her.
Yeah.
But she seems like a very sweet person that you want to get to know and that you can connect with.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious about that LGBTQ speech. So I wrote it down so we don't forget to add it.
Perfect.
The only thought that I also have is, well, this is known as the Genius to Freak channel, but you may get to that when you're talking about the 23rd gate. And it's interesting to see as well that it's in her second line. Also in her Uranus. So this is in her Jupiter, sorry. This is something that she needs to be invited to speak about it. So she has to wait for that thought to be able to speak it out properly, but she also needs to be called out to share her thoughts and ideas. And this is really an inner knowing that is happening within her that she can then speak about once she was called out to share it.
Thank you. I appreciate those extra little bits of insight. Hey, yo. Okay. The next piece is her design sun, which, as I alluded to earlier, is also in her ajna. And I think that that's so interesting to have both of your sun gates in the ajna, right? Like to be so not in your head. I think just this could be, don't get me wrong, right? Like this could be really intense and just like overthinking things, but I think it also can be really cool in the sense of thinking things through in a new, different, insightful way. She has the 4.4 in her design sun. This is the gate of formulation, meaning like the need to build on theories, express opinions, develop different concepts, and then arrive at different answers to questions, and then being able to kind of formulate based off of those thoughts, those processes. The energy with this gate should be towards the collective or social issues is, I think, probably the best use of energy in this gate. And I see that happening, right? Like she's spoken at International Women's Day events. She's been called out to speak, like we said, at this, at like the equal rights events. And I think using that voice and using that thought process for social change, for the greater good, is probably the beauty of this gate. And it's really cool to be able to see her using the, I guess, the impact that she has from acting towards other social issues that she finds are worth talking about and are worth having her face and her voice attached to. So yeah, it's just really cool to be able to see all the thought processes in her mind go towards social projects where the true potential of it all can be truly realized.
Yeah. I also just looked at her circuitry, and she is mainly collective or individual, which is also very fascinating. So I can totally see where you're coming from with this aspect of her wanting to do something for the greater good while still having this individual empowerment aspect to her as well. So very interesting. I love how you're describing the gates. Good job.
Thanks. So the interesting part with this is, as Miko said, she has to be called out to do things. It's also very, right, as a 2-line having to be called out to do things. And with her sun in gate 4, right, a 2-4, also having like that community, that connection, that interpersonal need to be able to do things and kind of, I guess, level up, for lack of a better word. So in 2011, I think, the interwebs just went out on Anne Hathaway for literally no reason other than I think she was too good of a human being, which kind of sucks. You know, people always find something to like balk at. So there was like a 2010-2011 Hatha hate campaign of just some trolls on the interwebs, and no one, like most directors during that period, wouldn't work with her because of her tarnished interweb persona, which really sucks, doesn't it?
But what was the reason? There's no reason?
Literally no reason.
I mean, I can't even, I've never heard anything negative about her, so I can't even imagine what you would be able to find to complain about.
Dude, it's not like you I don't know, it's not like homegirl Britney Spears who was like getting out of the cab and was like, snip, snip, snap, snap, like, you're not wearing undies. Like, it wasn't even like that. It was literally just people who didn't like her vibe for whatever reason that bothered them. And then they started Hatha hate. And I think that went on for probably about 6 or 7-ish months I don't recall what movies came out during that time period, but she was working with a director, or rather had worked with a director on like two or three films prior to that. They had a very good working relationship. And I think this was also the same time period that she and James Franco presented at one of the awards. I don't recall if it was the Academy Awards. The Academy Awards, the same thing as an Oscar. Guys, this is so embarrassing. Like, I literally have no idea.
I
Anyway,
can't help you there.
I don't know. Anyway, she presented at some type of award show. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. She presented at some type of award show with James Franco and like still had half a hate around that. Maybe that was the impetus of it. I think she was trying to be like too forced or like too acty on camera, but like I feel like that's how all of those award shows are. So some people just like went super hardcore with the hate piece on it, and she kind of just retreated, right? Like that two-line hermit retreat really didn't have work for that like year and a half ish until she worked with the director of Les Mis, and he offered her the role of, the name escapes me. The No, seen Les Mis?
Is this the bad time to say I've never seen it?
I haven't seen it in probably like 8 or 9 years, like since it came out. I don't know.
God, I
It's a
feel
pretty
like a
big.
half French person. You should watch it.
You probably should. Anyway, he brought her out of that shell. She used the connections that she had, right, in him, in that really good working relationship to work on this movie with him, and she ended up winning, I believe, an Oscar for that film. So that's huge. Coming from a really, really low point to a more elevated point. All of that
And
happened, 2 seconds, all of that happened around the time of her like actual Saturn return date in 2011. All of that.
hmm,
Yeah.
interesting. And also very interesting because the reason I find it interesting is because she's a fourth line, as we've established, and the fourth line functions best when it has stability, when it has a job, when it has a partner, when it has a house, things like that. Or an apartment. It doesn't have to be a house and you don't have to own it, but basically you have a fixed space. So for a fourth line, it is important to have that stability in order to step to the next aspect in your life. So if you're looking for a new job, it is best to do that from a place of having a job already, not quitting and then looking for a job. Because the fourth line thrives when it has this stability in their life. It's also often when they are in a relationship that they become even more desirable from like even more desired by other people. So this is a very typical thing for the fourth line, to move from having a job to going into a next job, to move from one relationship and going into another relationship. It's not that they cheat, but it's they have this stability. They are very attractive to other people. And once they find a new partner, they may move to the new partner. So it's not that, yeah, just to clarify that. It doesn't mean that all the fourth lines are cheaters. Absolutely not. It's just that this gives them a way of being very attractive in job, in work life, as well as private life. And she is also, in her Saturn return, she's moving into a conscious fourth line. So a fourth line personality, and then moving into a sixth line design aspect. So she already has this design element of the fourth line in her profile. So she can very much relate to it in her fourth line personality in her Saturn, during her Saturn return as well. Just, yeah.
And I wonder, I mean, I've loved her since like I was like 8, right? And like she was in Princess Diaries back in like 2000, 2001. But I wonder if she took on more of a role model role during like now in her Saturn return. I feel like she's probably done more like social justice kind of things during her Saturn return versus pre-Saturn return. But also I think that comes with like more notoriety, better films, having more of a face out there in addition to that. But I wonder how much of that is connected to, you know?
Yeah, and also feeling like she can kind of move a bit more out of the hermiting aspect of the second line. So it doesn't mean like the profile will always stay, but you're still being influenced by whatever happens during your Saturn return, Uranus opposition, etc.
Totally. You're talking to a 6'2" who's got a lot of 3-line in her current Saturn return. It's rough, man. It's rough out here.
Are you what are you, 3-1, 3-5?
I'm a 1-3.
1-3, yeah.
It's rough out here, man. I
have a 1 line.
It's rough out here.
You can feel it.
Okay. I was going to go into the nodes, but since we're talking about profiles, I'm just going to hop into her profile slash her right angle cross real quick. I mentioned her 4323 and her 449. I didn't really talk about the 23 or the 49. Nonetheless, the two suns are in her ajna, which again makes sense, the explanation piece of all of this. And again, having the 4323, the I know line to your throat, easily accessible to your thoughts. Oh man, that must be amazing. But yeah, so this is associated with energies of like breakthrough, assimilation, formulation, having guiding principles, and really being able to vocalize that and make change for the greater good, for the collective. I'm going to bounce it off to you. Hit me up with a little bit more about the racks of explanation.
I feel like you've summed it up really well. And those are the key elements to really understand your crosses. Is you need to go into each individual gate and also understand how it is showing up in your design, but we're not going to do that today. The only thing that I would like to also point out here is that it is a right angle cross. So you can see a right angle cross because the first number in your profile is smaller than the second number in your profile. If it's reversed, if it would be a 4-2, for example, she would be a left angle cross. So right angle cross is about a lot of introspection, and it's a lot about becoming the best version of yourself and really focusing on yourself. It doesn't mean that she is self-absorbed. It just means that her main focus in life should be really working on herself. And this can still lead to you being a very influential public figure because you're influencing other people, but you're doing it through having become the best version of yourself, like the most authentic version. So living your design is a very, if you're really living it to a T, then you're very, very authentic, and you can use all the elements in your chart properly to have an impact in life. So the right angle cross is often known for, when we're looking at cycles, is often known for not having a lot of allies. And I don't think it changes. Yeah, it doesn't change in her Saturn return. So she still stays a right angle cross, but then in her Uranus opposition, she moves to a left angle cross. And this is where she's going to see more allies coming her way. She will have more support in her life on fulfilling her life purpose.
I'm interested to see what this next like 3 or 4 year span brings for her. It's going to be really interesting to see that transition. Cool. Okay, so the next piece that we're going to look at are the nodes. So both her design and personality nodes, they're transitioning from south to north. And let's start with the personality side. So her south node is going from the 58.2 to the north node of 52.2. This is in her root center. There's a lot happening in her ajna and her root. If you recall, everything in her sun basically is happening in the ajna. Everything node wise is happening in her root, and it is a wild time out here. We're going to go in deeper. It is wild. I've just never seen so much energy happening in just like two spaces before. But this is all about pressure, right? Like the root is all about pressure. So everything that she's experiencing nodal transition wise is all about pressure. And in this instance, from south to north, so the 58.2, which is the gate of aliveness, is going into the 52.2, which is the gate of inactivation. So in this transition, there's an environment that is under deep pressure, an environment that's seeking something. And this is seeking some type of advantage in life. It can be that they're trying to seek out joy, that they're trying to find something that's rewarding and fulfilling. And that's kind of the basic essence of this transition from aliveness to inactivation. But there's also going to be a hypersensitiveness, I guess you could say, to the world around you. You're going to be sensitive to the fact that there's not going to be enough pauses before something happens, that there's going to need stimulation from the gate of aliveness into the gate of inactivation, where there may not be a lot happening, but there's going to be this go to less, which I'm very interested to see this transition in her as well, from I guess needing the joy. If you want to explain a little bit more about the 58.2, feel free, to the 52.2. But yeah, I don't know what this feels like. So this is just me understanding it from different readings. But yeah, any thoughts on this transition?
So this is the gate that I told you I cannot relate to.
Same.
The 58 is really something, I don't know why it is so difficult for me to connect with. And I don't have that much activation in my root. That's probably one of the reasons. I do have 38 and 39, so I can speak a lot on that aspect, and that is also going to become very interesting in the Uranus opposition. These two gates, the 58 and the 52, I think this is something that is played out on her stage. So she's moving apparently from an environment that is joyous or very active, as you've described it, the joyous, the gate of vitality, to the 52, the gate of stillness. This is how I know it. And the gate of stillness is also connected to the hexagram of a mountain. It is still, it is calm, it is a very, very different environment. But this is, of course, what we're expecting to see. When we're looking at the nodes, they're polar opposite, just as when we're looking at the sun and the earth placement, they're polar opposites on the wheel. And you always have to get to know both sides. So you have to get to know both sides of the coin in order to really see the full picture, see the whole coin. And it, of course, is a challenge because you have to adjust to an entirely new environment, or the way that you're seeing your new stage. And that's why it can shake you up so much in the Uranus opposition, because you are moving from, let's just say as an example, you're living in Norway, because I feel like Norway is a very civilized, very straightforward place. You could also say Denmark, for example. And then you suddenly end up in India. That doesn't mean that India is not civilized, but it is a crazy, crazy, crazy place. So it can really overwhelm your nervous system. It can, if you're not ready for that, and if you have a very Northern European mindset, then India can be a shock to your system. And this is what happens with the nodes. You go from an environment that you're starting to get used to after 40 years, and then suddenly you're thrown into, it's not a sudden overnight thing, but let's just make it more dramatic. Suddenly you're thrown into this entirely new stage, or onto this entirely new stage. That can be a lot. And you really have to get used to that again, start to feel your way around. As you can see, a lot is changing in the chart in general, as in you're getting a lot of new influences. So throughout life, it is very difficult to get to know yourself and to really understand your own personal human design chart. Because there's always influences that are bombarding you from all aspects, either the daily planetary transitions, the people you encounter in life, and your life cycles, also the solar returns. All of that is constantly trying to influence you, trying to make you believe that you're one thing, even though you are in your design, you're fixed, this is how it's going to stay for the rest of your life. And you have these aspects as a consistent source of energy. That is what it's basically saying. So if you're starting to believe, for example, you are a generator because you've just spent time with only generators surrounding you all your life, but you're actually a reflector, it can be very, very challenging to, when you first encounter human design, be like, okay, I guess I'm a reflector. I guess I don't have as much energy as I was made to believe energetically. It doesn't mean that someone is sitting there brainwashing you, but this is an energetic brainwash that is happening on the daily. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on the nodes.
That was like 5 cents. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, but I think that that's super helpful, right? Because we are being bombarded with external energy all the time, and that is a really good reminder. Okay, we're going to stay in the root. So that was on Anne's design side, or rather personality side, that transition. On her design side, from south, she's going from the 38.4 to the 39.4. So that's going from interaction. Can't write my handwriting. Interaction into obstruction, which I think is really interesting. Miko, I mean, I have notes on this, but these are gates that you can really relate to. So I would love to hear your take on it. I feel like they're just called very different things when I do different research, right? So like, you tell me, are there different names for different things, or am I just going crazy?
No, it is correct. And it also depends on the teacher who's talking about it. So for example, and also the I Ching, even in the I Ching, there are some different interpretations. So if you look at the gene keys, they will call it differently. If you look at human design, they will call it differently. And if you look at the original the original I Ching, usually human design takes it from the I Ching, but even there it can be a bit different. So in human design, you can see that we have all of these hexagrams that are related to the gates. And it is very interesting to look at the original I Ching to really understand what these hexagrams mean, because they kind of create a landscape. So as I said, for gate 52, it is connected to the mountain. As you can see, keeping still, mountain. So the hexagram itself is the representation of a mountain. And this additional insight or understanding of the root of the gate, so the I Ching is the root of human design gates, is super, super helpful. So, but it can also be very, very confusing. This gate, the gate 38, is known as the gate of opposition, but it's also known as the fighter. And to me, this is my sun personality sun. And this is something that I can relate to so much. But she has it in her north node. So this is, again, the nodes are only stages. It is not her a characteristic of her. However, she also has it in her Mars energy as a... No, she doesn't. Those are the 28. Sorry, I'm looking at the channel. So she only has it in her stage environment, the 38.4. What I do find interesting is that when we're kind of going back to our thought process of, do nodes really create a definition in the human design chart? Then she wouldn't have any kind of definition in her root. Her root would be entirely open.
Dude.
And yeah, and this is again something I find very interesting. So I'm really intrigued by this thought process because I believe the more that I think about it, the more I believe that if something is representing your stage, what you're moving on, it shouldn't be defining aspects within your chart, because your chart shows you as a personality and it shows you as an unconscious, like as the design aspect. So you have the conscious and your unconscious aspects. And I do think that Chiron, for example, should be something that is creating definition in your chart. The nodes, I don't think so that much. So I would really love to see within her, even though she has the root defined, if she functions more like an undefined or entirely open root. How much pressure is she feeling from her external environment? Because here, if you would look at the chart, you would interpret it as she is creating the pressure in herself. She's the one that is impacting others, creating pressures in them. She is the one that functions through adrenaline. But I'm not sure. I would like to see that. So to come back to your question on the 38-39, I will hold off on that for her Uranus opposition, because she has the same cross as I do for her Uranus opposition. So she's turning her design nodes into something. So she's turning her stage and becoming her stage in some way, which is so interesting, also considering that she's an actress.
Yeah. She's also started filming more movies again, like within like this last year and a half. So I wonder how much of that is this transition into this new stage as well. It's really cool. It's really cool to see this and then see someone's life that is so public and the changes that they've made since, and like when they choose to retreat versus when they choose to be more outward. I think the final note on both of these nodes. So last week for Miley Cyrus, we noted that that the lines changed in her nodal transitions, whereas for Anne Hathaway, her lines stay the same. It goes from a 4-line to a 4-line in her design. It goes from a 2-line to a 2-line in her personality, and those are also her, she's a 2-4, right? So she's not experiencing very much transitions within the lines, which I think is really interesting to kind of at least have a bit of security in that way, coming from someone who has a lot of line transition right now. It's just very interesting to feel secure in one part of who you are, even while you're experiencing so many different flows through life. So I think that that's really unique, really cool. It was really cool to go deep on this one because of how many, I don't know, it's just very interesting that there was a lot of Ajna energy, a lot of sacral energy, and the lines kind of remained the same throughout all of it. So, yeah.
Root energy.
Root. Oh, sacral, I said root. Yep. Nope. Yep. Root.
And also a lot of splenic energy.
Oh, yeah. Her spleen's blowing up.
Yeah, a lot of fears. Potential fears.
Potential fears, yeah. So interesting. All right. What do you got about Uranus, because I know you were alluding to some of that. Is there anything that you wanted to touch on looking at that Uranus opposition chart in particular? We have another, oh no, we have an 8 and 1 this time. We had a 9 and 0, nowhere to go for Miley Cyrus's Saturn return, but we have an 8 and 1, still room for fun. Is that what that one's called?
Yeah, let's have some fun.
Let's have some fun.
Or have some fun. There are a few things that jump out right away when you're looking at her Uranus opposition. Mainly that she has the full connection, all 3 connections from her ajna to her throat. That for me is very fascinating. So she's also receiving the 1762 channel, additionally to her 1156 and her 4323 channel. She becomes a single definition. So before, when you're looking at her original chart, she's a split definition and she's missing, or quote unquote missing, 16 or 20 as a gate to feel whole. And I'm saying this all in quotes because everyone is perfect the way that they are. But these elements can be a lot of the energy. So especially if you have a narrow split definition, that can create a lot of I'm not good enough. And you're constantly trying to find these 2 gates, in her case, 16 and 20. You're trying to find these 2 gates to make you feel whole. So either you always feel like you're not good enough, especially she's going to especially feel this in her skill aspect. She will feel like she doesn't have the enough skills to, and she's not good enough because she's continuously feels like she needs to work harder and harder and harder to be better and better and better. I'm saying that the 16 is going to be one of the major ones that she is feeling the I'm not good enough, because the 57 has the connection to the 34. So this is a channel that provides her with a sense of security. If it was just the 57, then the 20th gate would also be cause of I'm not good enough in a lot of ways. But in this case, the 16 is hitting harder. If you're looking at her Uranus opposition, she does become a full definition and she is gaining the 20th gate. So she does feel more whole within herself. And additionally to that, she has the left angle cross of individualism, which we kind of pointed to already, that she's going to start to have more allies and more support on her path. I have the left angle cross of individualism, which is why I can connect with it so well, and I have it in this combination exactly. So to me, I know what it feels like to have this energy, and she will have already seen this energy, probably more of the negative aspects on her stage. So the left angle cross of individualism, with having this strong sense of this is the 38 is the fighter and the 39 is obstruction and the gate of provocation. So you can see if you have the gate of the fighter and provocation, it can be quite challenging. And I know that for myself, I had this a lot when I was a teenager. I was so stubborn, and I still am, but I've learned what to be stubborn about, and I've learned what to fight for. And if you don't go through this learning process, you're going to stay stubborn and keep fighting for silly little things. You're going to have the stupidest of arguments, and you're going to hold on to the stupidest of things just because you believe that I need to fight, I need to provoke, I need to do this, So yeah, it's really not going to work out well for you. But if she has learned from her stage and she's seen these negative impacts on her stage, she's now able to turn it around when she's going through her Uranus opposition. So she may start to already feel the impact, but it's going to get stronger and stronger the closer she gets to it. And of course, it's then going to last until approximately until the Chiron return. This is how long the Uranus opposition life cycle lasts. So the influence and the impact of that, you're going to feel it until the Chiron return. And yeah, if she's able to really turn her stage into her way of being in a lot of ways, she's able to fight for the right causes, and she will have a lot of strength to it. So one of my idols as a kid, I mentioned this on here before, I think, but it was Jeanne d'Arc, Joan of Arc. And she was someone that for me represents this cross extremely well. It is because the 57 is connected to your inner intuition, having a very strong sense of inner intuition. It is about fighting for the right cause, and it is about your mere presence can be very provoking to other people, but you can also say things and do things that provoke people a lot. And it is a very individual cross. So there's a lot of individual energy. It is all about you as an individual. And yeah, it is. I've learned to love the cross, but it can be very challenging because you will lose a lot of people along the way. And that is what this cross is also there for. It is, you provoke people, and the wrong people won't stay in your life. They will feel provoked by you. The people that are meant to be in your life, they will stay in your life, and they will be your biggest allies.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel very passionate about this cross. Do you have anything else to say regarding her Uranus opposition?
No, I don't. I think you wrapped it up beautifully. I mean, I know there's multiple things that we can go deeper into, but I think that this is all my brain can take.
But hey, look at that. We managed to go as long as with Miley Cyrus. Nearly.
Hey, yo.
Well done. I'm super proud of you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Miko. Alrighty, guys. Well, I don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but join us again for another riveting episode talking about all things human design. Ooh, maybe we should bring back a serial killer.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't done a serial killer in a hot minute. That's
true.
It's a hard left turn, but
yeah, from someone that looks like an angel.
Yeah.
To serial killer. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Sounds very on brand, I feel like.
Thank you everyone for listening. It was a pleasure hearing your deep dive on Anne Hathaway, your first one.
I know. Alrighty, guys. Till next week.
Bye.